What's up, Internet? Attack Slug here, and today I wanted to talk just a little bit about Ubisoft and why Ubisoft PR people really need to just stop talking. You could do us all a favor and avoid thousands of pages on hundreds of forums if you would just stop talking. Now, a lot of this draws back to this year's Assassin's Creed games, more specifically Assassin's Creed Unity, which will be on the PS4, Xbox One, and the PC. Now, there was an interview asking why Assassin's Creed Unity is not going to be on the Wii U, and they said quite simply, the Wii U cannot handle it. And that's all well and good. I believe that 100% because the Wii U is obviously only a little bit more powerful than the PS3 and the Xbox 360. That makes sense that it could not handle Ubisoft's next-gen Assassin's Creed game. Where the problem lies is that there are two Assassin's Creed games out this year. Assassin's Creed Unity for current-gen platforms, and Assassin's Creed Rogue for last-gen platforms. So logic would dictate that Assassin's Creed Rogue, which is out on the Xbox 360 and PS3, would get a Wii U version, but that is not the case. Now, the CEO of Ubisoft has said that Wii U gamers do not buy Assassin's Creed games, and honestly, they don't put a whole lot of work into those ports, so I really can't blame Wii U gamers for buying half-ass ports from Ubisoft. They kind of feel like the PC crowd does these days. But it does not end there. As many of you have heard, Assassin's Creed Unity on the Xbox One and PS4 will be 900p on both consoles. And that in and of itself, I didn't think was that big of a deal until the guy being interviewed said that they did that to avoid the debates and stuff. That is a direct quote. Now, by saying that, you explicitly open up debates because people are immediately going to feel that you are holding back the PS4 version because, as we all know, the PS4 is a more capable console than the Xbox One, as proven by a litany of games. Now, obviously, the game is not out yet, so we have not seen if there are perhaps other enhancements across the PS4 and Xbox One that would differentiate them in any way. But saying that you want to put it at 900p to avoid debates is exactly what people are afraid of, when we can easily look and see that Assassin's Creed Unity has a co-marketing deal with Microsoft. And right there, that looks like impropriety. There may not be anything going on, but it just looks bad. It looks shady. It looks like money has been exchanged to hold back the PS4, and that is what everyone feared when Microsoft put out a console that was not up to snuff, was that developers were going to target the lowest common denominator when making their games. Rest assured, Microsoft does have deep pockets, and if they really wanted to do some underhanded dealings, they could. That being the case, there is no proof to say that is what they have done this time. It might just be a case of Ubisoft being incompetent, which would not surprise me in the least. Now, later on, that producer did apologize for that statement. He said that he misspoke. I'm not really sure how you would interpret that any other way than to say one of the consoles is being held back, and guess what? It's the one that is more powerful. But Ubisoft also put out a statement saying that 900p is not the final resolution. It is just the one that are currently showing in their preview builds, so things are always subject to change. Now, last year's game did get a spec bump from 900p to 1080p on the PS4 post-release, so that is not completely out of the question. And there was a statement going around that went out to the giant bombcast where a producer claimed that it was incredibly difficult to get both consoles up to 900p, but that statement has not yet been verified to my knowledge, and I'm incredibly curious whether or not that was a fake statement or not, because it sounded a whole lot just like shilling for the game. Now, of course, other developers like BioWare have taken some pot shots saying, hey, 1080p on PS4 for Dragon Age, 900p for Xbox One, we're not holding anybody back, and that's all well and good. And that leads us directly into the next PR blunder, and I'm going to read this as verbatim as possible. And it says, at Ubisoft, for a long time, we wanted to push 60 FPS. I don't think it was a good idea because you don't gain that much from 60 FPS, and it doesn't look like the real thing. It's a bit like the Hobbit movie. It looked really weird. For fuck's sake. Okay, first of all, the Hobbit was 48 frames a second, not 60, and it's 48 because they were doubling what cinema is, and that is usually 24. Second of all, to say that 60 FPS does not feel real or doesn't look that great, just because 60 FPS is twice as hard to achieve than 30 FPS does not mean it is not worth doing. If you can't do it, just say you can't do it. But don't degrade 60 FPS by saying it is not as good as 30. So to have the creative director saying that 30 FPS feels more cinematic and it actually feels better for people when it's 30 FPS, look, if you want to be cinematic, cinema is 24 frames per second. So lock in your game at 24 frames a second, give us a nice letterbox, and be done with it. Don't lie to us. Don't spew this bullshit that 30 FPS is better in any situation than 60 FPS. Let me tell you something. Physiologically, the human eye can see up to 1,000 frames per second, and the human brain can accurately interpret up to around 150 when you're guessing about how high the frame rate is. So 60 should be the bare minimum you should be striving for. If your studio is not able to accomplish 60, that's fine, lock it at 30, but don't tell me that 60 is not better than 30. And just because you had a bad experience in the cinema watching The Hobbit wasn't 60, The Hobbit was 48. So at the end of the day, Assassin's Creed Unity has gotten an awful lot of press by them saying an awful lot of stupid things. And this may have been on purpose. They may have wanted to drum up interest in perhaps the worst way, and they say that there's no such thing as bad press. And certainly, a lot of the internet has been talking about this game and the things that have been said about this game. Now, me personally, I haven't played an Assassin's Creed since that shit show that was Assassin's Creed 3, and honestly, I have no interest in the fact that they're putting out 2 new ones on the same goddamn day. That being said, Ubisoft, your PR people need to stop talking. Please stop talking. Please stop feeding your ignorant nonsense to the wider internet who should really know better. You are not doing yourself any favors, and you are just degrading the image of what you have left as a competent video game company. But at the end of the day, if you wanted to play Assassin's Creed Unity at a high frame rate and a high resolution, you'd be playing it on PC. The unfortunate part is that Ubisoft PC ports are usually pretty garbage, and you're forced to use Uplay, so you're kinda damned if you do, damned if you don't. So that about wraps it up. Thanks for listening. This has been Attack Slug saying, Ubisoft, please stop talking, and I will see you next time right here on this channel, and I'm out.